all right. Good morning. Happy Sunday. Sunday Motivations with Kevin and friends. My brother, my co-founder of RMK Productions, Mr. Raymond Porch. Marjorie is out on another assignment. We are waiting for other people to enter the room, but we're going to go ahead and start this. We want to announce today we are changing the platform of how we're doing Sunday Motivations. We're going to open it up to our friends each week. We're going to ask someone to bring in a motivational quote and connect the dots between how it landed on them and how they're putting it back out in the world. And we'll have that discussion. And today, out of the kindness of Raymond's heart today, we're going to let Raymond go ahead and be the first. Well, he's actually the second, because when we opened up this in the beginning, Raymond's quote was the first one. So we're going to go back again to the well, and we're going to hit it again. So Raymond, good morning. Good morning, my brother. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing, man? I'm doing well. It's good to be here and have a chance to kind of start the day off in a positive way. And so I think for me, the quote that we're talking about today is we are better together. We are better when we are humble and in the service of others. And so I guess what I would say is I've heard this a number of times. I work in education, and so and I'm in leadership in education, what's called leadership, right? So for me, it's a quote that or comment or thought that holds a lot of value. And I always think of myself as on the approach with these kinds of learnings, because I think that this isn't a statement, a bookended statement. So you start here and you stop here, and you are this statement or this thought or this quote. I do believe we're better when we work with other people. I do believe we are better when we are in service. And I do believe we are better when we don't think of ourselves or we don't center ourselves in the work. However, I do think that that's a challenge today. In my experiences, I go about life that way very much because that is somewhat aligned with who I want to be, not necessarily choose to be, but who I am. My life experiences have been such that it's easy to not center myself, because I've lived a lot of my life not being centered, as a Black man. And as the youngest, in a big family, there's a lot of context to why, like not being the superstar lead guy on teams. And, there's a lot of, synchronicity around why this quote is one that I can, feel good about. But that said, I think today's world that we live in, where bad news travels faster than good news, where we get a lot of attention because we beat the drum harder than everybody else, or we scream the loudest, or we make the most noise, doesn't always allow for humility. So I think for me, the evidence is clear that I do want to serve in this life. As a father, I serve. As a husband, I serve. But I would say, that I do believe that the quote has a lot of value for me personally in my life. So yeah, that's where I would kind of, start.
All right. All right. We have been joined by my fraternity brother. Hey, Bruce Hill, how you doing? This is Raymond Porch. I'm Kevin McLemore. If you want to put your screen on so we can meet you, so the world can meet you, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Give me one moment. Get some lights on in here. Good morning, Raymond, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
So far, so great.
Ray, this is a Sigma brother, blue and white all day long. All right, Goma. This young man is a dynamic individual. I don't know if you heard the quote for today. If you got a chance to hear a little bit of it. I know you just popped in. Raymond, if you don't mind repeating the quote. And basically what we do every single Sunday, we're changing our format. So let me go back a little bit. It was coming from quotes that I had created from some of my writings, and we're opening it up to friends. So each week we're going to ask someone to bring in a quote to share with us how it was created or how it landed with them and what their perspective or interpretation and how it connects to how we live each week or each day of our lives. So Raymond just shared with us. So I'll go ahead and let Raymond repeat the quote, and I will go ahead and give my little spin and my take out on it, and we'll listen to you, and we'll just kind of just talk and rap.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So as Kevin said, we kind of remixed this a little bit because, with all things that you do that are new, good practice is, see what works, explore and experiment, right? So the quote for today was, "We are better together. We are better when we are humble and in service of others." So one more time, we are better together. We are better when we are humble and in service of others. So that's kind of what I just got through kind of speaking to, and how it resonates for me in life, and different thoughts about it. But Kevin is going to go ahead and share, on that particular quote.
Yeah, it's I am always in awe every time I have a one-to-one conversation with Raymond, or in his presence in a room, and listen to the way that he shares and his interpretation and his perception on life in general. Raymond brought up I think it was a text or something. He saw someone that posted regarding being present and having a conversation, or standing in a hallway and being present at a conversation and not participate or say anything. Ray, how did you say that about Simone Biles?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, I was just telling Kevin before we came on, a friend of mine, his name is Tito Jackson. He's a former city council person here in Boston, and he posted a comment that was given by somebody else, and essentially the comment was, Simone Biles said, you guys heard how she came out and talked about her self-care and dialed it back, and the comment talked about how somebody spoke to her off public stage, or outside of public presence, and said, wow, I'm really impressed with your courage. I wish I could be like that. And so what Tito was speaking to when he posted it was, if we're going to be allies, because we hear that word a lot, right? Especially for us as brothers, we hear that word ally. You're going to be an ally, in this instance, to a woman of color. Be her ally public facing. Spend some of your social capital out loud in front of God and everybody, right? Don't pull her aside and say, oh, I wish I could be more like you, because that's not really what allyship is. It's one thing to say it, it's something else to actually do it, right? And to act on your word. So I was sharing with Kevin that, like, that post, a couple of my my people on my network, that like it's catching heat. Like, everybody's talking about it now. Not heat, but like everybody's starting to talk about that piece, because we're hearing a lot about how folks want to be allies. But anyway, yeah, that was the context of the conversation before we came on.
And the way the comment resonated with me is exactly why Raymond, Marjorie, and myself formed RMK Productions. We realized that, one, the voice of people of color going through COVID was not being heard, and the only way that it could be heard is that we needed to stop shouting from the balcony and come down to the floor and be present and to be heard, because otherwise it's just background noise. The way your mic picks up the feed from someplace else, but the true conversation doesn't come up or come into play until you actually are speaking into the mic. And this covers the whole spectrum. I mean, when I look at my connection to an historically Black college, when I look at the numbers, there's only 107 of those that exist. And when you look at the other universities and colleges in the country, 5,300. And then I think about the fact that every single year, every single season, every single day, there's a group of individuals, you know, Raymond and I are both sports-minded people, and I think you have a background too, Mr. Hill. There's a bunch of young men that are looking at stats, and they're going into these neighborhoods that they would never have come into, and they're plucking out talented individuals. You know, we just interviewed a young man that got over $1 million worth of academic money offered to him to come and bring his talents there. I always say, why do you want him? Why? You know, he's a young, talented individual. He's got a big public following. Is this going to be the next trophy you have in your case and says, look what we did for these people? All right. And sometimes they're transparent and we see through it. I've made the comment, Raymond has echoed the comment, and we have asked this question, is that if 80 to 90% of every academic, every sports-minded individual, you know, that looks like you and I decided to take our talents to one of those 107, what would happen? And the funny thing is, I asked someone the other day the same question that happens to be a CEO of a pharmaceutical company. So, you know, I'm not talking to a black person. I said, what would happen? He says, economic power in 2 years would shift. And I said, where? He said, to where the talent is. And I said, on top of that, where do you think the white talent would go? Where the game has to be played. Because no one wants to play on the second team when you're trying to make the first team. So collectively, through education and molding and putting yourself out there, instead of standing in the backgrounds playing it safe, we have so much power as men, women, black and brown, Asian, Persian, however you want to say it, and however the system wants to look at it. We have so much power when our voices are collectively unified in harmony for one purpose. But we got to take it from the hallway to the center stage in order for it to be heard. So I like to say, what if? And believe it or not, I'm going to repeat this until it gets done, until I see a mother that says, no, this is where you're going, like Malik Hawkins' mother said, and like Malik said, you know, and by the way, he had a blue and white suit on, so he's being directed. But I would like to see what would happen, because I'm going to tell you, Raymond, and I'll tell you, Bruce, a 4.440 is just as fast at Central State, Carolina A&T, as it is at UCLA, Ohio State, which I love Ohio State because I grew up in Ohio. But I'm going to tell you, when they're picking the first team, they need to pick the only team. All right. So that's my take on it. Brother Bruce.
I appreciate your insight and your wisdom there. Honestly, I just be repeating you, because what we see in this country was very valuable, or excuse me, valued, may not be valuable, is entertainment. So you have some talent in whatever sport, and you go to a school, it's going to attract more talent to that school. Talent attracts eyes, it attracts dollars. Now this whole school is improved. Buildings, equipment, teachers. Now it attracts more talent, and it's an upward spiral of success. And I agree with your CEO associate, 2 years. 2 years. We would probably have, instead of 107, that number would increase as well, because there would be running out of space. It'd be so competitive. I got to go to HBCU. It'd be so competitive, they would start turning down. And respectfully, I don't know if that's a problem currently. That's probably the one thing, my favorite quotes is, everything I'm not made me everything I am. If I could go back in time, what would you change? I really wouldn't change anything, because this version of me is exactly who I'm supposed to be. But knowing what I know now, I might change one thing. I might go to HBCU. Knowing what I know now, it makes sense. And then to emphasize what Raymond has said, well, I wrote it down. That's something I learned. Note takers are money makers. He said, we are better together. See, we are better when we are humble and in service to others. I just said this week, it might be on my Instagram somewhere. I said collaboration over competition. That's just the fragment of what Raymond said. Collaboration over competition, that's the key. I preach this until the day I die. The only way to be free is economic power. You're not going to vote. Oh, I'm preaching. You're not going to march. You're not going to protest. Go get some economic power, right? Let's get out of the hallway onto the center stage. You have economic power. They listen. You don't have a choice. You know, you got the mic. You got to listen. But we can't do that unless we're collaborating. And that starts with our education. It starts with our businesses. It starts at that very beginning. And then it's going to trickle. I don't even want to say trickle. It's going to be a waterfall effect into the rest of our lives and into our communities, into our country. But it's got to happen together.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And that's, you know, I'm going to repeat what my brother Raymond always says in our meeting. No matter what, I will not waver. No matter what, I will not waver from our mission. And when we committed at RMK Production to create a podcast network, we knew that we were going to have to diversify in order to be successful, but we also know that we need to stay true to serving our community and our people. When someone asked me the other day why, and I put this out there to my team, because, you know, my response was, I said, I won't be satisfied until we are in a position that we can give a young man or woman an opportunity to have a first-class education and not have the stress that I personally had to go through. I don't know about Raymond, in order to get my education. All right. We will not be satisfied until we can have a mother that has children, that she needs to have a safe dwelling, that we can put a roof over that child's head and that mother's in a safe environment. We will not be satisfied until that happens. We will not be satisfied until we can see that every Black, brown, or child that attends either public, private institution in their early education, to where we can make sure that their bellies are fed from breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks with food that nurtures their souls instead of poisoning their existence. And we will not be satisfied until we make sure that every time a kid turns a page from the beginning to the end of a book, that they're represented based on facts and educate and the truth versus on what has been spent for us to believe. Because we're a firm believer, we are all taught and caught, and we will not waver from where we're at until we get our own people to overcome their own personal biases against their own people and support a foundation where the seed can be tossed on the concrete, and that seed will find a crack in order to grow, so we can start that foundation of that forest that will eventually become our economic wealth, our independence.
Listen, I agree 1,000%. And Bruce, man, like, I love it. Collaboration over competition. Listen, I got you. That's going with me to Burlington. I'm taking that one to Burlington, baby. So I am an assistant superintendent of a school district in Burlington, which is a suburb of Boston, just for context. And I really appreciate your sharing this morning. Very uplifting for me. And, you know, we in this work, your cup can get depleted. And so you poured into mine, you and Kevin both. So I appreciate you both for doing that. And it's nice to be in a space with other brothers too, because, you know, the way that we live in a social construct isn't designed for us to be together. You know, one of the tenets of oppression is to spread us out, to push us down and spread us out. So I appreciate you making the time to come and, you know, collaborate with us today. I would further, and say this. I think we all have unique and distinct roles that we get to play in that vision of creating, our own economic independence. I think that for us, it's a dynamic experience and challenge for our community because of the historical trauma and effort, I would say effort, that was put into dysregulating us economically, and really attacking our humanity, so that we still are navigating personal, and historical, and I would say even ancestral trauma, that still comes forward today in our experiences. And so we all have different lanes that we have the opportunity to play in creating that, that economic freedom. I think what I've learned in my life at this point is that my lane has been defined by the greater, and that is to teach and to learn. And so that's where I'm going to make my contribution in the time that the Lord gives me. And I have no qualms about that. Yeah, I'm not, I've embraced that, and I go forward with that with my heart full, and a lot of belief and hope every day that I go and work with young people and educators, because I really do believe that if we are to have an opportunity for that to happen for our community, we have to be more knowledgeable, and we have to have a better understanding of where we've been, and how that synthesizes with where we are today. I don't think that we can simply start from the perspective of, just changing the game today. I think in order to do that, you have to understand the game that's been played and that we've been participating in, and we all have to make individual choices to unplug from the matrix, as it were, and then decide with good information, make a choice. I always say in leadership is choosing. And when you lead in life, you're choosing, but we can't make choices if we are uninformed, right? If we don't know what the past is and what the facts are, then we're really not effectively choosing. We are reacting. I would say the difference between reacting and responding. Responding has time, information that's factual, and a time for you to reflect on that information against your own values. So you hold your own values lightly. You experience the world through the context of past, present, and what potentially lies ahead. And then you go back to looking at your values that you held lightly, and then you choose what you're going to do as you move forward. That's an I statement. I live in the world that way. And I'm not saying that we all have to or should. That's just kind of how I see it in my time on the planet. But I think for me, I guess the point I was trying to make is that we all have distinct roles in that freedom that we create for our peoples. And I've been blessed to figure out that my lane is going to be one where I do a lot of sharing of historical context and present understanding and reflection and the power that it has, and learning with our folks, is something that's important to me. I think oftentimes the social construct that we live in has been designed for us to believe that we have to have experts and we have to have people who don't know anything. I don't subscribe to that. I think that we all have asset value as we live and experience this world. And I think that, part of my task that's been delegated to me by the higher is for me to bring that out in folks, and to be present with them and bear witness to it as it comes out, and to validate and edify them as it comes out, while also still being on the journey of being a learner myself. So I know I won't see the day for us to get to that freedom, but I will contribute with great great passion, and great effort, and most of all, belief and hope that it'll still happen. So I appreciate you, Bruce. What you shared really resonated for me, and thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve. What you said is so important, that each person has their contribution, as their talent. But that's what's so important about collaboration. Any one of you listening to this, what the pastor say, within the sound of my voice, you could build a house It's really not complicated. Perhaps it's not easy, but it's really not complicated. But how much more quickly and effectively could you build a house if you had a construction crew? So what's more important, the electrician or the plumber, right? What's more important, the roofer or the drywall guy? What's more? They all have to contribute. And I use a house very deliberately because as we try and construct a new home for ourselves in this world, within this world, it's gonna take everyone's contributions. And so there's none that's too small. Even interior decorator. Maybe the house wouldn't fall down without the interior decorator, but now it's a home. Now I want to be here. I remember one of my first apartments, the young lady I was talking to at the time, she comes over. She said, Bruce, have you moved in yet? I said, oh, I live here. I've been here. She was like, it's empty. And so she decorated the place for it. She made it a home. Still friends to this day. I needed that contribution. I know how to match colors, but I didn't even think about it. Or even paintings on the wall. No, anyway. I agree with you. And in the fact that you are making that contribution deliberately, with intention, consistent, you've already changed the world. You've already changed the world.
Amen, my brother. Amen, my brother. And I'm going to put something out in the world and take this to another level. My young brothers, my young sisters, when you listen to this, when you talk about we're better together and service, I want you to think about this. Do not bring a life into this world. Do you have a life to provide to the person you're bringing into this world? If you have decided to make a connection to one person that's given them life, respect that gift, because that person is a gift. You have to realize is that a man learns through what he is exposed to. And if you're not present, he's exposed to elements that are out of your control. A man learns how to love from the affection and compassion and being able to have forgiveness from the source of a person that's able to give life. So no matter what decisions you make in life, and if you or your other partner somehow cannot stay together, do not break that chain for the example of who a man needs to be and to identify with, and who a man needs to learn how to love when he's looking for an example of where love comes from. So we can take this quote and put it on so many different levels. It can go from personal, it can go to social responsibility, it can go to serving our community, but change only begins if what's in your heart aligns with how you think. And what you touch every single day has to fertilize something that can grow and manifest itself into something special. You know, we're going to be doing this thing every single Sunday. You know, my dream, Raymond's dream, Marjorie's dream is to take it from one to many, for that voice to be the same, and for the actions of hope, helping other people every day, and from our mission to uplift, create stories and share stories and experiences from perspectives that use the framework of teaching and learning and modeling. Brother Bruce, you are always welcome back. Next week, we're going to turn over the baton to you and let you bring in the next quote. I'm going to ask you to bring a friend to share, because that's how we build it. One voice at a time, one person at a time. And how change begins is being exposed to opportunities that provide opportunities. And this conversation in RMK Production is doing just that. So for anyone that's listening, when we share, I've got to say this, is that Bruce, we are going to make this public. So I need your permission to take your likeness and your conversation without any repercussion of us using this in order to promote RMK Production and our message and our mission. So do I have your permission? And can you please say your full name and grant us that permission?
Bruce Hill, give you permission for full use.
Thank you. And Brother Raymond, as always, I cannot do this one thing alone. Bruce and I are connected through a history that was founded by a group of young men that had the same conversation we have right now. I'm going to convert and motivate Raymond, because we do have a grad chapter and he's an educator. What we say, Goma. Okay, we'll explain to what that's all about. He is a brother from another mother. And I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in and supporting such a magnificent event. 3 dynamic young men that are going to turn into many. And I'll leave this for everyone to listen to and to ingest. God only sends his strongest warriors into battle. Meet the team. All
Bruce,
right.
I'm looking forward to your quote next week. Get it to Kev and we'll get it posted out here. And I'll have somebody on board with us next week as well. And let's just try to keep it moving. I really am thankful for you being here today. I know you and Kev are connected, but I'm very grateful that you carved out the time and I got a chance to be in your presence. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm full of gratitude. Look forward to being a part.
All right. And Bruce, I'm going to thank you for sharing my book and reading my book. Raymond and I, that's how we got connected, is through indispensable games of how I learned everything about life. I learned playing high school football. So I've succeeded in my mission to at least reach one, teach one. And we'll continue that. I'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.